Hi, my name is Sven Krading, on social media also known as 7Exchange. I'm gonna show you today what it takes to become a successful person based on works of American literature that I studied this year. According to Credit Suisse's Wealth Report 2017, the top 1% of the world own more than 50% of the world's wealth. 9 out of the 20 biggest companies on Earth are located in the United States, making a yearly revenue of more than $2 trillion US. And they all got founded by people that created outstanding things, that changed the world we live in and the way we use and consume products. But what is it that makes this upper 1% so much more successful than the rest of us? Is it a secret conspiracy, pure luck, or just hard work? Doing some research with different poems, books, articles, videos and letters, I tried to answer this question. Literature about success and successful people is extremely influential on young people, and it can affect their lives. So I wanted to figure out what it takes to be successful and share this with a bigger audience. We have a huge amount of literature about success and successful people, and sometimes more is not necessarily better. So what I tried is to bring you a little insight on the most important and influential work in this area and teach you how to be successful. But first things first. From 1922 to 1976, the wealth of the top 1% actually decreased from over a third to under a fifth of the population's wealth. Until today, this wealth went then back up. From 2010 to 2017, the wealth owned by the top 1% went up from 35.4 to over 50%. These growths can be explained with the two technological revolutions we had the past 2 centuries. Most of the big companies got founded either right during or right after the Industrial Revolution or right before the Digital Revolution. In case of the Industrial Revolution, we have, for example, Ford Motors Company, Valley Falls Company, basically a former version of Berkshire Hathaway, or also the General Motors Company or the pharma giant McKesson. In case of the Digital Revolution, we have what we all know, Apple, Microsoft, but also United Health, Visa, MasterCard, and even FedEx and many more huge companies. So all the companies got founded by people that could predict the next big thing. And everything was possible in these days. To understand why some of the people started becoming successful, I read different sources and found surprising results. I will tell you a little bit about some of the works I have read. The first book I want to present you is the book Outliers, The Story of Success, written by Max Gladwell. In this book, Max Gladwell tries to figure out why some people are more successful than others. And he includes a lot of smaller stories, for example about athletes, farmers, pilots, entrepreneurs, and many other examples in our daily lives. He explains what the development of a child or a culture can have for an effect for your future life. And he includes some really surprising factors. The book got written in November 2008, so right at the time of the financial crisis and the Great Recession in America and worldwide. But I think this did not influence the book at all because it was written too recently right after the recession, so it couldn't be influenced by that. For the author, Max Gladwell was born in 1963 in the UK and is now a Canadian citizen. He writes for the New Yorker and he has some really successful books such as Blink, Outliers, or Tipping Point. I want to give you some examples of what the book talks about. The first example is it talks about athletes and that they have advantages based on when they were born, at what time of the year, and for what sport. Because of the selection dates, it makes a big difference if you were born right after the selection date or right before, because then you can be almost a year older than another person that will play in your age group. And this makes a huge difference for your future career. Another example that Gladwell uses are farmers. Rice farmers generally work harder, which makes the Chinese culture working way harder. Also, the same applies to cattle farmers who work harder than crop farmers. So cattle farmers actually are more likely to be successful. Gladwell also explains the 10,000 hour rule. He takes examples of the Beatles, Bill Gates and Bill Joy. So huge names in the technology world or in the music world. To literally every single super successful person, this 10,000 hour rule applies. He explains also that intelligence is not quite as important once you reach a certain level, because it doesn't really make a difference if your IQ is 135 or 145. Indeed, it makes a difference if it's 100 or 110. He also says one of the most important factors is that you have the courage to speak to authorities like they would be normal people. Literally every single successful person does that, and they get taught that in a very early stage of their life. So giving these many explanations and examples and putting a lot of thought in it, the book definitely explains you what you can do to be successful, and it is a really good representation since it takes so many examples. The book also is really important to young adults and is very influential for this age group. Since it is a new form of American literature, it's more likely to be read, it's more popular, and it has a bigger influence on us. Now I want to read you a short passage so you can imagine what the book is written like. It is those who are successful, in other words, who are most likely to be given the kinds of special opportunities that lead to further success. It's the rich who get the biggest tax breaks. It's the best students who get the best teaching and most attention. And it's the biggest 9 and 10-year-olds who get the most coaching and practice. Success is the result of what sociologists like to call a cumulative advantage. The second article I want to share with you today is 15 Surprising Things Productive People Do Differently, published by Forbes and written by Kevin Kruse. In this article, Kevin Kruse asked more than 200 very successful entrepreneurs, billionaires, Olympians, etc. what their number one secret for more productivity is. He took all the results and put together a list of 15 points. Some of them are more obvious, some are more surprising, and they all explain how you can be more successful. The article got written in January 2016, and about the author, Kevin Kruse is the founder and CEO of leadx.com, an online platform that gives you leadership training. He's also a New York Times bestselling author and a keynote speaker. I want to give you some examples of what the article talks about. First of all, it talks about how the most successful people focus on their time and their calendar. They don't have hours, they have their calendar in minutes. It also talks about how important family life and breaks are for these people. Family life has a very special status in the life of any successful person. And they know that they need to take breaks in order to regain energy. They also all have rituals and traditions. For example, a morning ritual or a weekly special day where they just focus on this one specific subject on this day. So generally said, it is really a summary of the rituals that the most successful people have. And it is a very good representation of a broad population of successful people. It also shows a lot of ways how we can improve every day by just a bit and become more successful. In my opinion, the article is really an important piece of American literature because Forbes is extremely popular in today's youth. And since it is an article rather than a book, it's even more likely to be read and therefore even more influential. So I want to give you a short passage, just like in the book Outliers, of this article. Your future self can't be trusted. That's because we are time inconsistent. We buy veggies today because we think we'll eat healthy salads all week. Then we throw out green rotting mush in the future. I bought P90X because I think I'm going to start exercising vigorously, and yet the box sits unopened 1 year later. What can you do now to make sure your future self does the right thing? Anticipate how you will self-sabotage in the future and come up with a solution to defeat your future self. So what can we conclude? Successful people always value their time, and when they do something they want to do it correctly, okay? Some texts reveal more how aggressive some of the most successful people act than others. And often it's even possible to see the personality of one famous person in another celebrity. But they all have their visions, and they act the way they do not because they're selfish, but rather because they want to achieve greatness and excellence and perfection in their vision. Or, as Steve Jobs would say, they are
the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward.
This kind of literature is really one of the most important and influential parts of American literature. As a new form of literature, it's extremely popular among young adults and teens, the group of our society that is still trying to find a style of living and trying to find their own personality. If they start doing little changes in their daily lives, they can make a big difference in our world. We all want to be respected. We all want to have a life that is worth living, and many of us have the dream to build something that is bigger than us. Something that will survive once we are gone. But as long as we don't know how to accomplish these goals, we will never achieve them. So we need guidance, not only in real life, but also in form of literature.